Hello and welcome to another episode of the Self-Made Podcast. On this show, I get my good friend Laurence from Salus London on the show. This is actually an old recording of a live that I did on my Instagram at Kingsley Dutton, where I did a series called Think Science Talk Client, where we break down some of the more complicated topics in terms of mindset, business and health and make them accessible to everybody. And in this episode, we talk about photoshoot preps. How we go about doing them, why they're important from both a physical standpoint in terms of getting you ready for building muscle long term into the future, but also as a mental deadline, how to use this as something to really kickstart your transformation and allow you to sort of delay gratification and push to something that you may not actually push to if you just have this goal, this endless goal. We all know that a lot of goals end up like gas. When tasks fill the space that they're allowed. Setting a deadline to your fat loss efforts makes you more productive and gets you more out of your result. We also talked then about how we've done peak week with ourselves and our clients. Laurence at this time had just completed a photo shoot and he had a really good vibe of what he'd done with his prep as well as some with his clients. And obviously I talk about many of my clients that I dealt with in the last 10 years of my career. So if you're looking to do a photo shoot or if you're someone that wants to coach people through a photo shoot, this is a great listen for you, and I'll leave with myself and Laurence. Looking forward to this one. This is going to be a very fun conversation. This is with my good pal Laurence, who owns Salus London. I have known Laurence. It was on his live where I realised how long I've actually known that guy. Literally known him. It's got to be coming close to a decade, man. Like when I started Virgin Active, I was a fresh young baby-faced PT, and now I'm a grizzled old half-bearded attempt veteran. But kept in contact through the days at UP, and he has done some great things with a phenomenal niche, and now he's starting to branch out in bigger ways. And I'm looking forward to chatting with Laurence. Is he on? Benson, the answer is never.
Do you know what? It's so much more useful when, good man, it's so much more useful when I send the request myself. And I've done a few lives and I'm trying to talk with people and send an invite for them to join as well at the same time. It's quite the skill set to be able to keep the conversation flowing whilst at the same time trying to find some idiot that doesn't quite understand technology yet. And well done on that. That was exquisite timing.
Mate, I thank you guys. I've always been everyone's just done these lives if I've jumped in just as I've been finishing sort of the big intro of them, so it's all worked out well. And
what are we covering today?
Like last time, right? When I was on your live, the first was a JP comment slating us. This time, I got my old uni pal Benson telling me when I'm going to shave the beard off. It's like I just get abuse every time we do one of these.
I think there's a certain amount of respect you deserve for resilience in the beard growing department. I've confessed this too, which is going to ruin some of my cool points, that I did have a full beard up till recently, but I manufactured the shit out of that with one of those beard rollers. And they work, man. They really work.
I'm going to try it.
I was dedicated, and now at any point I can grow a full beard. So any guys out there feeling a little demasculated by, those handsome dudes with the big old full face, the big old beard, you can get anything you want these days.
Yeah, mate. I mean, I've still got this little weird bit here that doesn't want to grow, but it's better than it's certainly better than it used to be. And I have, and anyone who is sitting there going, "Why has he still got that beard?" I've got a story on my Instagram which talks about the meaning of that beard. And with my mega super pout picture that my barber took of me the other day. So how are you feeling, man? How's things with your shoots? You've done 2 of them now than last week, right?
2 in the last 2 week. 2 in the last week, yeah. So I'm going to be honest. Fluffed the first one. Fluffed the first one massively. I looked like a big swollen watermelon, a big vascular swollen watermelon, but nevertheless a big swollen watermelon. Do you know what? It's my own fault that I tried to combine slightly different strategies with prep. That I changed my mind last minute and decided to manipulate water a little bit and manipulate sodium, and I didn't get it right. And that's just the price you pay, right? But I'm in a position where I do this quite a lot, and I like to experiment. It's fun to find out what works for you. There's so many different strategies now when it comes to photoshoot prep. There's very much the old school, and there's this new school mentality of, really not messing around with too much, really. But the second one, man, the second one, I was just like, ding, 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 ding.
Yes.
And being in a position where you're just like, holy shit, you know what? I've earned every second of this moment. And I think actually I think there's been this trend now that I've obviously jumped on the back of encouraging clients to do these like transformation photos. And I know you guys at UP, and probably now you'll continue to do it, have always pushed that. And it's a very special moment, and something that I realized, you don't have to be thick skin lean to really feel the atmosphere and the nostalgia of having your photo taken at you at your best. Whatever you is at your best is that phase. Trust me, you're always going to want to look better. You'll never feel like you've finished the job. There's always going to be the next one, the next one. It is addictive. It is incredible. And I just think everyone should give it a blast, man. Like, even if you're not wildly confident, like some of these people that we work with, the photographers, they've been doing it for years, man. They know how to get the best out of you. They know how to make you calm and feel confident and, enjoy the experience. It's not a daunting experience what a lot of people think it is. It's not like, and it's not serious either. I think you've probably done it a lot of the time. A lot of the time, by the time you get to that point, you're having fun, the hard work's done, you've already probably had a few days rest and recovery, you haven't probably got the prep head that you've usually got, hopefully the cortisol's come down a little bit, and you can just really like embrace this experience. And for me, they're obviously, being part of the industry, there's a certain amount of pressure to get things right. But then also I've realized it's cool for me to not get things right. So what's your standard protocol, right? Or is it forever changing like everything in the world?
Joe, before you go on to that, there's a couple of things you mentioned there that was quite interesting. And like the first one, I think, is you hit the nail on the head with trying to get every client should probably do a shoot in their life. And like I had this for clients for a while. I was like, I only do a photo shoot if they were like Men's Health cover model ready. And I've done plenty of photo shoots with clients that have become Men's or Women's Health cover, cover model ready. But it's not about that. It's about a showcase of how far they've come. And like I think most people, if they put a shoot in the diary, they create a real deadline that scares them enough to know, I'm going to get my shirt off in front of a cameraman if I'm fat or if I'm not. And it'll push you to get further than you ever would have done on your own. Whether you're the finished article or not, you would have beaten your expectations by just putting this in the diary. And like you said, I think the fear of it, the anxiousness of it, is more the anticipation of it than it ever is actually a thing. Once you've got your first picture taken, once the first flash has gone off, people relax and tend to really enjoy the hard work. They're just nervous until it starts, and then they can just relax and enjoy it. It's like playing sport. When I played rugby, you're nervous until kickoff, and then you just sink into it.
I think like feeling underprepared is sort of part of the process as well. Like, we take, obviously working with Chris Bailey, we take photos in our studio of a lot of the best of the best, the pros, the top fitness professionals, and I can guarantee you none of them feel ready. None of them are like, I was completely ready for that shoot. Everyone, even the best of the best, the champions that have come in have been like, I had no idea at the time that I was going to be ready for that shoot. I thought I looked terrible. So it's part of the process. Like, you will have that daunting feeling that, God, I'm not ready. But like a lot of the time you are. A lot of the time you've done the hard work, and having that motivation, having that drive towards doing that has really like give you the most out of the whole transformation or just PT experience, right? I've got my whole crew, Antonio, who's just joined in. I've got my whole crew, my whole gym going up to Bailey Studio in Nottingham in next month. And for me, that's the way it's done, right? It's going to be a social event. We're going to eat afterwards. We're going to drink afterwards. And there isn't any particular pressure to be the best or look the best, but it is about going, you know what, you lot, I fucking rate you bunch because you've given me everything and I'm going to give you a little memory back. And I really enjoy it. Now, going into sort of like how we get there, I think that in fact, I know that you're going to agree with me 100% is the number one thing that you're going to want to consider when doing a photo shoot is you've got to be lean. You've got to aim to be as lean as you possibly can, right? There's no, the tricks and the manipulations are great, but they're never going to do as much as just genuinely being like shredded. And I know you get fucking inside out lean. And, from that point, it isn't really that hard to look particularly amazing.
I think you hit the nail on the head there with the key thing. I think what many people, and the question box I put up, I basically got a number of the same question time and time again. It was, is there anything different from a shoot prep to a normal fat loss diet? And I'm like, no, there isn't. And people overemphasize this. What are the peak week tips? And the amount of times I've had trainers to me goes, oh, what should I do for peak week? I'm like, well, another 6 weeks is what you should do for peak week because they're not lean enough. People think about this water and salt, and you hit the nail on the head earlier going, I messed up my first one for experimenting, and we'll go on to mistakes we've made in our diets and shoot preps later, but because I've probably done one much worse than you with that, but it shows you can it shows you can mess up a prep easier in a peak week than you can make it. And if you're in doubt, just get lean enough and don't worry about it.
Don't worry about the peak weeks. Exactly. I think in terms of that peak week, I think you can play around with it. You can take a few risks, but probably more than likely, you just want to play it safe-ish because you can stack the whole process quite easily if you decide to sodium load at the wrong time as water load and look like a fucking giant melon. You can be too depleted on sodium, too depleted with water, and look like completely flat and like you've never trained in your life, which we've probably both seen frequently before. So it's a case of I think for new people staying in a sort of middle ground. Yes, you can manipulate sodium to a degree. Yes, load the water up, of course, man. But also you've really forgot to remember that if you're coming into a shoot completely depleted and cramping and you've got to shoot all day, then you're not going to enjoy that experience. You're not going to have a good time when your mouth all tuck-ins, can't talk like that. It's not a pleasant experience. So you maybe don't want to necessarily do that unless you're planning on stepping on stage and really trying to be in with the win. And even then it can offer you limitations on how full you look. So, the best thing is obviously follow the advice of the coach. Whatever you do, don't go online and check what the best peak week is because there's 1,000 different peak weeks and all of them are going to contradict each other. The best thing is to follow the coach that you're working with at the time. They don't have to be amazingly experienced, but you do have to commit to one person because like me, if you try and do plans, you will fuck it up. Yes. So let's start with probably. I think the key thing is I still really rate glycogen depletion.
Yeah,
and mainly because of the way that the cell will respond post depletion. Right, I think it's something like 120%. Of the glycogen it can store rather than just the normal capacity, which can make you look absolutely hench. And peak week alone is one of the most magical and momentous experiences that I think you can go through as someone who's really into fitness, because it's like, oh shit, that's new, that's new, that's new. Fuck, I've never seen that line before. I've never seen that serration before. What the fuck are this roadmap on my legs? You know, those are the sort of experiences that you get from peak week that, you know, only come around maybe, like, if you're into prep a lot, maybe 2-3 times a year at maximum. So like, it's a real beautiful time, and I completely don't know where I'm going with this, but glycogen it would be my first tip. And I know that the new school are more long reverse, long refeeds out of it, so like finishing on quite high calories and carbs. And this goes back to the original point that there are 1,000 different methods, but I find for general pop that works really well, because it also gives them more time to burn more fat, right? So there's always a deadline. They're never going to truly get there early, no matter what they think they're capable of. It's not often that a normal client doing a prep for the first time is going to get there 4 weeks early and you can reverse them into the shoot. It's not likely, because you'd already probably have wanted to do 2 or 3 preps before that, where you are, say, 10% by the time you start your prep.
Yeah, I suppose it depends as well of the kind of person you're dealing with, right? Like, we've done a fair few of them. You know, we got a coach on our hands or a bodybuilder on our hands that's done these before. We know that they can hack it to either go harder or to float the idea of a longer prep to allow them to be ready 4 to 6 weeks out in the first amount. But somebody brand new to the gym who's maybe doing their first shoot, it's maybe just a showcase of the progress. You know, like, you're not going to know how they respond. And I would always say trying to tell somebody on day one who probably could get lean in 8 weeks, yeah, we're going to do 24 weeks. They're mentally going to check out of it unless you're really good at knowing when to put in diet pit stops and refeeds and communicating to your client for them to tell you they're struggling. You know, I think it's like, okay, a lot of times it's getting lean as efficiently but healthily as you can, and then if you're lean enough to manipulate these stuff.
Help? Do you say healthy?
As healthily as you can.
What?
Depends how lean you get. Depends how lean you get, right? Depends how lean you get.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, okay, it's a better way of doing it. At least get them into the position where they're healthy enough to embrace the grind that they'll have to do down the line.
Healthy enough to live to tell the tale. Healthy enough to survive to the shoot, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Past the shoot, they fucked it.
Well, yeah. So going back to your thing on glycogen, obviously, so you talk about the depletion at the start of the week. Now, one of the biggest questions I often get asked by people on carb loading or depleting, and this is front loading or back loading when you're doing your carb up. Do you have a preference? And if so, how do you sort of approach that?
Front loading or back loading my carbs?
Like refeed, yeah.
At which point?
Right, like as you're coming into a peak, end of a peak week.
End of a peak week, I'm coming. I found that I prefer coming up slower with healthier food than the bigger, more aggressive loading on that last day. I want to be like on a couple of 100 grams, like 2 days out, and then like a day out once all that water is gone. Or not necessarily gone, but my levels are quite low. I'm going in at 1,000 grams of carbs, quite comfortably, and usually finishing that last meal on something quite high in sodium, quite high in salt. So I didn't mess around with too much junk food this prep. The one that went really well, I had some red meat, some salt, and some vitamin C and water, and a glass of red wine, and that seemed to really like bring that home on the morning of the shoot. And it wasn't. I didn't find that. I preferred not being completely dehydrated. I preferred being able to enjoy the process. I preferred having some energy, not feeling like shit So it's for me, it's a slower carb load. What about yourself?
Depends on who I've got in front of me. I think when I quite like a backload of carbs where like I'll build, like similar to you, like I'll build carbs up and have the biggest day the day before the shoot. I think that's good if I've got someone where they've gotten lean enough to do a couple of trial runs. So I think with a backload of carbs, it's potentially the biggest risk, but potentially biggest reward. You know what you're putting in on Saturday as a shoot Sunday, and they're ready to fucking go, really full. But I think when you haven't got that trial run, I quite like to sort of front load carbs. So I'll probably deplete. Let's say the shoot's on Sunday. I'll probably deplete until Thursday, and let's say they're averaging 150 grams of carbs or 200 grams of carbs. I'll go like, let's say I'll go a little bit more. The highest, I'll like 2.5 times the carb intake on Thursday. Let's say I go 450 grams of carbs, and then I'll plan like 300 grams of carbs, and then I'll plan like 150 grams of carbs, and that's how I'll plan it. And then so it means that like I'll then look at how they respond. So that first carb up on the Thursday, the next day, if they've dropped weight the next day, okay, it wasn't aggressive enough, up it goes. We do another day at 450. Or if they drop loads of weight, we do a day at 500. If they start to get softer, I can back out a little bit. And then I've got those 3 days to sort of like, let's see how you look. Let's see how you respond. And then we can play around with it. And then on the morning of, similar carbs, fats.
And so then I guess that's a nice thing and a nice safe way to approach a newbie, especially because you could just do a couple of workouts as well.
Yeah.
Like,
if practice it.
If potentially they overspill, and that's something that I'll do in the last 3-4 days, is I'll just get a little pump on. That's it. I just like quick rounds of like 30 reps around the gym, take a look at them. Okay, how are they looking? Could they look fuller? Obviously, it's all a bit of a guesswork until you get the final look. And like, obviously, the more experience you get with people, the more you know what you're looking for. But we got someone from Russia.
So I'm thinking this guy's pump up is like cleans, snatches, a couple of split squats, and he's ready to go for his photo shoot. Like the strong stuff. They don't do all these wimpy things like bicep curls in Russia.
No.
They're tougher than us. They're tougher than us here in London and Hong Kong.
So what about the deload? Are you a person that's deloading before the shoot, or are you training right up until the shoot?
I mean, I deload, yes. I don't necessarily stop training if they don't want to stop training. If let's say if you've got their regular week, depending on how hard they train, I would probably, believe it or not, I would go more depletion workouts for more beginners than I will for more advanced guys, because I feel that with beginners they're less likely to be able to deplete from the usual exercises because they can't generate that intensity. So I may do like a little bit of a full body circuit at the start of the week, and at the end of the week I'll back off to sort of upper body only, and on the last day I'll trial how I do pump ups. So there was I look at pump ups much more strategically than I used to, and I learned this from Anthony Jones at Shapeshifters, which you'll probably know, being a brummie like me. And when I did my prep with him, he looked at, rather than just pump it up and just do a few lateral raises and rows and hit your shoot, which it always ends up being a bit like that because time and what's available. But if possible, I go, right, what's their smallest body part and what's their biggest body part? And your smallest body part will always make your biggest body parts look smaller, not the other way around. So if anyone sees a picture of my back for my shoots, it's not that, very rarely do you get someone going, oh man, your back makes your arms look big. No, it means, man, your arms make your back look tiny. So my pump up for me, for sake of argument, will start with back, go into chest, delts, bis, tris. My tris are the worst. So I want to finish my last set of pump up on my triceps. So I go into the photo shoot with maximum pump here and a little bit of a dive pump on my back to try and make things look more balanced.
I'm going to confess, I think you actually put a lot more thought than me.
It means, and to be fair, that my last photo shoot wasn't like that. Hence probably why the triceps look so amazingly small. But I just because there was about 5 or 6 people doing shoots on the day. It wasn't realistic. It was push-ups, seated rows, a couple of bicep curls, and then onto the shoot I go. This is optimal and practical. You know, it never ever works as optimal as you like. But so with the end of the shoot, I'll probably do, going back to the deload point, I'll say, okay, I'll trial that out. What's my ideal order? So I've got a slight plan of what I'm going into on the day. And then on the last day, it's like your aim for, like, let's say shoots on Sunday again. Saturday is relax. Feet up, Netflix, get laid. Whatever makes you relax, like, just chill the fuck out. And then don't do I shouldn't really call them out, should I? I really like the guy, but don't do a Luke Hassler and eat foods you've never eaten before and prep and blow yourself out.
Yeah. I think there's sort of like changing the ingredients at that late down line. Depends how hard your prep is, right? Because this is where the scientific understanding comes in really useful. Is like, if you're shot to like absolute dead, if you've been killing yourself, working your ass off, exploring, using a new food ingredient, might on the surface sound like nothing, right? But you don't know how your body's going to respond to that new food group. You might have done like me. You might have gone 6 months without eating that food group. You might have had the same 3 or 4 or 5 food groups for the last 6 months, and then you're going to throw fucking ice cream in there, or you're going to throw donuts in there, or, you know, anything that's just going to, you know, boost that sugar. It's a risky strategy.
There was a trend here in Hong Kong for a while where I was looking at trainers where a lot of them went, I sent my client to 5 guys the night before. And, like, I'm not necessarily against that because, like, let's face it, every time you've done a prep with somebody, they always come in on Monday and they go, oh, God damn it, they look so much better. And, like, no matter how aggressive you think you're being, you always underdo it in terms of carbs. So it can be amazing. But a lot of people, like, I'm just like, if you haven't had bread for the last 6 weeks, I ain't touching that. Like, I just don't. It's not worth the risk. If a client's gonna be less disappointed, going, oh man, I probably could have pumped up more, than my abs disappeared overnight. You know, like, it's not worth it.
That being said, I think it's a really nice testing ground if you're going to work with someone for a lot of time to like plan the second meal after the shoot and see how you look the next day. And if you're smart like me, I actually have booked in a second shoot the day after the first shoot. So in my next shoot in 6 weeks, we're going no manipulation whatsoever, no junk loading, just genuinely dick skin lean. And then we're going to go for the junk load and then see what happens in the morning. So that's a really nice opportunity to experiment around with things, sort of like at least get an idea of, okay, how much food can I really eat and still look fucking horribly lean?
The most interesting one I did, going on to like personal stories with it, like, this wasn't a shoot prep, but I got shoot lean, and it was just I got a colleague to do my diet. We went for it for 8 weeks, and I was just getting lean for a holiday, and the aim was I was going away on the 4th of August to Tenerife. My birthday's on the 2nd, so I diet to my birthday. We'll take photos, and then assuming that I'll eat a bit of junk on my birthday night, have a few drinks, come in looking really dry and really full. Now, I went through, I took these photos. I look really depleted, like really big. I looked like, you know, 50 kilos soaking wet, but shredded. And I went out for this Brewdog tasting night. So you use 6 beer samples, and they tell you the history of Brewdog. But it was such an intimate group that you finish it, and all the people are going, oh, I'll get you a pint of my favourite beer. And we were sat with 2 early investors. So they were really big Brewdog guys, and obviously because it's made them a lot of money. And I ended up leathered. So I come in the next day with the aim being, we'll take some more photos. And all day I'm sitting there. I had no clients booked. I was behind reception. I was like, I can't do it. I can't take any more photos. And JP, bless him, one of the best things he's ever did for me, for my birthday, bought me 2 litres of Iron Brew. And I downed this 2 litres of Iron Brew. And for those of you like don't really know what Iron Brew is, it's a orange fizzy pop drink made in Scotland, which is full of sugar, full of potassium. 2 things that'll pump me up really well. And I down this, and all of a sudden I start feeling good again. Like, it's like the hangover cure. I do a quick pump up, got my mate to take photos. It looked like I'd gained 5 kilos overnight. And I will do this. I will put, after this live, for anyone who watched it, I'll put a picture of my back and show you how small my triceps look in comparison. And I'll put a picture of pre pre Iron Brew, post Iron Brew. And Iron Brew is my favourite pump up thing ever since.
I might have to steal that one from you,
mate. You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. Iron Brew. The Scots have got it right. Next will be a battered Mars bar next time.
So where do we start really in sort of like helping people at least plan an idea of how they're going to plan their prep or shoot prep, right?
So let's start with goal setting. So when you get new clients that want to do a photo shoot, want to be really shredded, how do you go about making this plan of action? How do you set the expectations in place? Because that's sort of what it comes down to. They're going to grind it out. They've got to have some good expectations in place.
I'm going to work. I'm a bit of a realist, right? I'm going to plan. I'm always going to plan to finish low, and in that time, depending on how much time I've got, I want to build them out, and then drop them down. But I always want that wave to finish on the low point, right? So it's a case of do the perfect plan in terms of, okay, what do I believe this person can tolerate in terms of their lower calories? Because I want to keep them on the lower calories right towards the end. So I'll investigate that quite early on in the prep, and I'll take someone through within the first couple of weeks, like a quite aggressive calorie deficit. And I actually stole this from you, from that fucking thing, and it really works. I went straight into a really aggressive deficit, from like maintenance down to 30%, down to 50% of their calorie allowance. And he coped with it really well. And he was like, I was fine. It was 3 weeks at 1,500 calories. He's a big guy. And he got amazing results. And I was like, you know what? I'm getting that. I'm putting it in the top pocket. And that's what I'm pulling out at the end. And then I loaded him up. And then just before we're coming in at 6 weeks now, we are starting on that. We're starting on back onto that 1,500 calories with the obvious refeed coming in. And he's at 13% now, but I really want to bring him in super lean, 7%, and he's never even been in shape before, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I want to plan it. I want to test that stress tolerance first. I want to see their fucking minerals first. They're like, how does this guy respond really, or girl? How does this person respond to super low calories? And then when I find that breaking point in which I know that they can tolerate, I'm scaling up to that point, and then working back up to that point as well. So from the low, getting them up to back to a point where they can maintain at least their body weight but still get lean. And then I'm planning that whatever space it is between that time is dropping them to that point of absolute exhaustion. And I know that sounds horrible, and I know that sounds mean, and you should probably just plan more time. But if a client says they want to get in shape in 12 weeks, we're going to do it, mate. I'm going to show them exactly how it's done. But
I agree with that. I agree with that so much, because I think people, you shouldn't necessarily feel like death from the start, right? And I think, yes, you can go a little bit more extreme in the deficit from the off when people are more motivated, people are driven. We want to take away as much stress from the body and take away as much sort of potential inflammatory foods from the body, build them up to where the caloric tolerance is and things like this. But as we're on that path back down, if someone wants to, there's a difference between getting lean and getting shredded. And I think the point where if you bridge that gap from getting to sort of 10 to 10% and go way sub 10, there's got a point where it's got to suck. It's got to get hard. It's got to be your top priority. And I think people expect it to be a little too easy and expect there to be very little sacrifices made. And we can get you a long way with very minimal sacrifices. But if you want to get that next level, and I know JP has just jumped on this call, so thank you for the Iron Brew tip. We just spoke about it. But he knows as well as I know, because I've seen him do some crazy preps. You just have to grind it sometimes. And I think the only thing we are responsible for as coaches is making sure somebody's healthily is in a good place to handle that grind. Where the at for the blood pressure, where's the stress, where's the recovery like? If they're all good and you start from a decent amount, pull the pin. You have to eventually.
I was saying it to one of my trainers today. she was like, oh, is that really low calories? I was like, 1,800. I was like, trains 3 times a week. I was like, you can cut that fucking down, down. Get that right down. We're 6 weeks out. I was like, I want at least 500 calories off that for the next 6 weeks.
I think as well, it's like, and it's also, I think, if you're going to, when you take a grind, it's fine as long as, one, they're healthy enough to do it and handle it. 2, you have an exit strategy. Like, if you know, we're doing this, we're 3 to 4 weeks out, we're going to grind hard, we're going to finish it off, it's tunnel vision, but this is your plan coming back out, which is something maybe we can talk about in a little bit. But like, if you've got that, and the person's got the minerals to sort of do it, then sometimes it's necessary, right? Like, Akash is one of the best online coaches, you know, like most successful online coaches ever with RMT, and he's labelled it the Vagella grind. You know, right?
I think a lot of that is like is how you set that mentality up from the start. If you pussyfoot around things, and you know, I've been guilty of this before. I'm like, yeah, you can transform and still enjoy the food you love. You know, you know, you don't need to be hungry at all. And I realised back then my results were suboptimal. They were like, all right. And it's only when I lost all compassion for people after going through my own prep that I thought, you know what, you motherfuckers are going to suffer like I suffered, and you're going to thank me for it at the end. And this is where like the psychological games with the client starts to play, because you know, as hard as the grind becomes, you realize the reward also becomes exponential in terms of like the small things, right? So like, let's say giving someone 150 grams of rice becomes their world, right? So you can play around with that. You can play around with like, okay, I'm taking 3 meals away, but you can have 1 meal to yourself. And actually it's less calories, but you just start to manipulate their mentality because they're so fucking hungry all the time. You give them like a tiny little treat and they're like, oh my God, thank you. I love you so much. And that really comes into helping people follow the grind by giving these little treats and tips and helping bits on the way where they can feel like, oh yeah, they can anchor. They think they're anchoring to some sort of normality, but really you've just allowed them some hot sauce.
Yeah, I think as well. I think that's one of the important parts of. And JP, I'm going to get to that comment in a second, actually, because that's relevant to what we were speaking about earlier. But I think that's the mentality of having gone through it yourself. Having done it, you can empathise where someone is struggling and how to help them. And you can only know the real hacks that are useful. And, you know, if you've gone and done it yourself and found these things useful, rather than... I can tell when someone gives me a diet hack, whether they've got it from a forum or whether they've got it from experience. And it's knowing how people, you know, the way the client walks into the gym, the way the client fills in the check-in form, the way, you know, where somebody's at, and knowing how they're going to feel. And then that little bit of support just allows them to push through a little bit. And go on to JP's kind of 2 5 guys and a large fries every week. We spoke about being cautious about doing the 5 guys carb up. If you're going to do it, that's how you do it. Because JP planned this from the start of his prep. So when it came to his last week, if he wanted a 5 guys, he knows he can handle it. But it's not I haven't had bread for 20 weeks and now I'm going to have a 5 guys and everything.
So you're almost preconditioning the gut to be exposed to those foods, right? Which is actually really, really, really smart.
Yeah. But yeah, okay, cool. So we've got that. So you've got the idea in place for starting somebody, you know, low to find out where they are, get them in a good space health-wise. And then we're sort of, when you're looking at building their calories up and the carbohydrates up, what are you looking at? What metrics are you looking at to know when that's enough? When do you know where that limit is that you start bringing them back down? Is it based on time, health, look? What
I think that the look is really important. When they begin to like overspill and look watery, that's fine, right? That's fine. When their weight's stable and they're putting on lean tissue while still burning fat, that's great, right? The chances of staying in that position and getting a really good photo shoot are slim to none, right? You can't be sitting in that like, let's build muscle and burn fat at the same time. At the end, you're going to be just hanging on to as much muscle as possible, and that's the truth of it. You know, you're probably going to look 5 to 10 kilos lighter than you expected to look. You know, it's going to come as a surprise. It's going to come as a surprise of how light you actually have to get. I was at like 96 kilos and someone was like, you need to get down to 80. I was like, well, that's like 2 stone. I was like, where am I going to get 2 stone from? But it came off.
Came off. One of the biggest things I've learned recently, in terms of certainly dealing with prep from other people, because I've never really cared too much. I get a little bit going a bit below 80 sometimes, but like I've never really cared. Whereas with clients, and certainly guys, freak out a lot about a number. They see themselves go under a number and they don't want to be there. Or I see people, because of that mentality, they stop prep and they start self-sabotaging and they don't get there. And they start to everything slows down because they're scared of looking quote unquote skinny. And it's now become part of one of my early stages of my client journey. Is like, I want to set these expectations from the off. This is the range for your height that you're expected to sort of be at. The first diet, you're probably going to be close to here. You're probably going to be lighter than you expected. And each prep, we're going to get closer to the top end of that bracket. And I'll explain, I try and explain early on before it happens, what the difference between losing muscle is and being flat. And what that looks like, and I use that, what I posted the other day about that sponge analogy, about that squeezing that sponge.
Yeah, I think we talked about it before about the muscle going into regression. And it's not disappearing.
Yeah. And it's really, I wouldn't even use the word regression, because regression says that it is that you're actually losing tissue. Whereas like if your extremities if your flat and extremities keep dropping, maybe worried. If we're losing strength in the gym, yes. But if you're holding strength in the gym and you're just flat, most likely, it's harder, you think, to lose muscle unless you're on a crazy caloric deficit for a very, very, very long time. So with going back onto your prep with this idea, then you talked about towards the end of prep, you're just holding on to muscle. Do you change training going into the last 4 to 6 weeks with somebody?
Yeah. I like as the food volume comes heavily down, I'll reduce the volume.
Yeah.
I will look for peaks in the session rather than overall intensity. I will look for maybe 1 to 2 moments where you're fucking dying, man. There's maximal mechanical tension. It's pushing your nervous system to the absolute limits, and that's it. We cut off, we finish, and then the rest of it is cruising through the session. And I really believe that's the key to allowing someone to hold on to their diet, right, and hold on to and not fall into those cravings. It's stupid to try and build insane amounts of muscle with insane amounts of volume whilst on 1,400, 1,500 calories. It's never going to happen. The only thing that you're going to do is become overstimulated. The only thing that you're going to do is not recover from the sets that you're doing anyway. So you're just making the preparation really hard for yourself by having this egotistical thing and believing that other guy, or let's say competition, the other guy's working harder. No, yeah. They're not. They're the best. They're working smarter. They know that they can't recover from these big hour-and-a-half long sessions. They're just keeping it short and sweet, and they're keeping it really frequent, and they're keeping their food on point, super tight. And I never really understood that till this last prep of how much detail you really need. No sauce, no, no, not a different choice of carb. Weigh everything to the gram. It really fucking matters. And that's how you get away with doing just the perfect amount of training volume and always consistently losing body fat and holding on to muscle tissue and potentially building some with quite little volume. So, that there's this idea that I know it's that classic montage of someone getting ready for it. They're it's nice. In my opinion, it's not a viable solution unless you're heavily juiced up to fuck.
Well, exactly. I agree with that, and then that helps your recovery. And I think I always think of I'll steadily build volume up, and then as food comes down, you can either the old thing: if you do more, you got to eat more. If you do less, if you eat less, you do less. And as food comes down, I'll probably go to 1 to 2 top working sets, just enough to give it a chance to keep it there, and then the rest of that sort of volume, if you even call it that, will then go onto arms and delts and all the small muscle groups and focus on getting a bit of a pump and driving the sets the way you want it to. But you said something really interesting there, which I want to touch on, which is more overarching sort of prep than it is, let's say, shoot specific. But is the attention to detail. I think that there's one thing that I found that sets the clients that succeed well in these preps to the clients that don't is attention to detail. And I don't mind, we talk about sauces and things like this, I don't mind. If you have an attention to detail, you have a choice to make. Either I'm more decadent to make my food more quote unquote tasty by having sauces, but understand that I may be a bit hungrier because volume will be lower and I suck it up. Or I maximize volume so I'm not as hungry, but I understand that it's probably going to be a bit blander, right? I don't really mind which way you go as long as you can like grind it out. And I've done preps where I've maximized food volume and I've wolfed down veg like it's going out of fashion. And I've done preps where I've probably been less food volume and enjoyed my food more. And they come with their own challenges. But like I see that especially when people coming into this who aren't in this industry, that, you know, different mindset to bodybuilders, and this is what a lot of coaches don't think about as their clients are bodybuilders. They don't understand the attention to detail that's needed. They think that food's clean, so it's about right. Rather than being like, if you want to get, again, the difference between lean and shredded is not putting on MyFitnessPal 1 ounce of steak. No one eats 1 ounce of steak. No one eats 11 and a half cashews. You've put a handful on there and gone, that's about right. And this is when, if you're getting a coach on the final stage of prep, if we think you're on 2,000 calories and, you know, you're actually way under or way over, our like adjustments for you may not work anymore. And we're sitting there feeling like we're the bad coach, or, you know, and I big these days on, right, on the first 21 days of work with anyone, I want food pictures, I want screenshots of your food diaries, and so I can, every day, I can compare the two. And I want to make sure that you have an attention to detail now. So 10 weeks down the line, if something stalls, I know it's the diet needing changing, not that, you know, you've now started like massively scooping out blue cheese dip onto your chicken, which I have done, by the way. That was a mini diet. I was like dipping this chicken into a blue cheese dip. And then like all of a sudden I was like 4-6 weeks in, I'm like, I'm not getting lean anymore. What's going on? I've not changed anything. And these scoops have become more and more and more. And I'm like, yeah, like, you know, that extra handful of nuts. And yeah, that, I think that's, before we even get to peak week, that will, 90% of people will embark on this to fail. That is probably the reason, lack of attention to detail.
I used to have an emergency pot of peanut butter, right? And my mission was to see... My mission was to see how long I could make this peanut butter jar last, and I would take little nibbles. I know this makes it sound so pathetic, but I would take little nibbles of this peanut butter. But like the nibbles became bigger, and then it was like pom pom. It's a terrible strategy.
I often don't put nuts in meal plans anymore, and that exact reason. Like, I just feel like people have this mentality that nuts are, because they're clean, and never know what that means. Does it mean you wash them? I don't know. But because they're clean food, that you can eat as much as you like. And I'm like, yeah, all right, you can get through your daily calories. I can get through my daily calories in half an hour if I have a bag of cashews in front of me. Easily, hands down. If you can have any nuts, at least have pistachios. At least make it work. At least burn calories opening those shells. You know, like. But yeah, I think that I feel mess people up. Big time. What have you seen? Is there anything that you see other than that you see regularly that stops people getting to where they need to be? Whether it's mentally, physically, mistakes. What stops people getting that condition in your mind?
I think it's attention from the coach, really. Like I know when I've failed someone, right? I know when I've just simply not been there to support someone, because there is a degree of self-motivation, but when you're thick into a prep, like, things mean a lot to you. Like, having that call weekly, having that chat weekly is a fucking game changer. You know, like, I wouldn't recommend anyone just follow an online plan for really doing a photo shoot prep. And obviously we're biased because we're online coaches and we coach people, but doing it myself, I speak to my client and my coach for like 5 to 10 minutes a week, but it anchors me to reset whatever mistakes that I feel like I've made. I reset, and my motivation becomes higher, just because there's that. I always feel like I'm seeking approval, and I think there should be a degree of that from your coach. You should want to impress your coach, and so like the biggest tail off point for when my clients have got wrong, I take responsibility for that. I'm like, okay, I haven't said the right words at the right times. I haven't responded to that message with enough enthusiasm to make them go, this guy believes in me. Yeah. And I think that's where we have to really wrestle with how many clients we take on, because we live in this world where, like you know me, I'm big on marketing. You put a certain amount of money in, you get a certain amount of clients out. There's no limit on how many clients I can have, but there is a limit on how good a job I can do with a certain amount of people. And like trying to be genuinely enthusiastic about 100 people is impossible compared to being genuinely motivated by a selected 20 to 30 people, which is really pleasant, right? Really getting to know that person. And I think in terms of anything that communication is like, nothing can go wrong for long, right? Nothing can go wrong for long because you're always chatting, you're always talking, you're always being like, how's the diet going? Because sometimes it can take a few things like that. It's just like a quick text. And you know that power, and you can't. One, there's two real key elements of having a coach. One is that little bit of motivation, but two, preempting adjustments, like following a static plan. You're going to adjust to those calories at some point. Your coach will know that that's going to happen, and he's going to drop that food out anyway. Whether you're making amazing progress or not, that food's gone. We're staying the course. And so I think that those are the two elements that I would believe would hinder most people, is believing what they're doing that's working now will always continue to work. Because when it comes to getting super lean, that's just simply not a smart strategy. And not having that connection with your coach, not having true belief, not having genuine belief that this guy knows exactly what he's doing to get me in the best possible position I'm in. And that's why I like to prep so much. I'm not doing a show. But I want people to believe that I fucking genuinely know what I'm doing and know that I care. Me and a friend got asked to write a Reps accredited transformation course. And the first thing that we said is the only way that they can qualify is they have to get the transformation as well. Mm. It'd be like 14 to 18 week course. If you don't get the transformation yourself, guess what? You didn't qualify.
Yeah, I think I've worked and mentored coaches in a number of places around the world now, and you can tell the difference from the guys that have done it themselves and the guys that haven't. And I think the power of coaching. I've done preps where I've prepped myself, and I've done preps where I've had a coach. And don't be wrong, I'm proud of the preps I've prepped myself. It gives me the confidence that things I do work. But on the flip side, I've learned more from having a coach than I ever will on any course that I'll ever do. Mm. And I've had some great mentors with, Luke Lehman and Jordan Shallow and, Nick Daniel and, Justin you had on, who mentored me. But doing the stuff yourself and learning it gives you empathy for your clients. When someone's going through a fat day, you understand it, you feel it, you get an idea when to ask that question. And when they might be too ashamed to tell you they're struggling, you sort of know, and just that ask, like you said, just is enough for them to then tell you what's going on. And if you need to make any adjustments based off that, which they might sabotage themselves.
A quiet client is in trouble, right? Pretty much all the time. Any client that's not saying a lot, they're in trouble. They're not following the plan, because anyone who's proud of their achievements, anyone who's proud of their commitments is like, they want to tell someone, man. They're like, I'm 4 kilos down today. I'm another 3 kilos down today. No, but no one's too keen on going, I fucking ate a chocolate bar last night and I feel like I fucked it.
It's always listening to, with clients, it's always listening to what's unsaid. The thing I always get right is measurements. So you've got a one-to-one client, this obviously is, they'll come into the gym one day and it's measurement day, let's say it's Monday. And if a client comes in on a Monday and goes, can we do measurements on Wednesday? They've always fucked up. Why was it always fucked up? That makes it seem like it's always their fault the rest of the diet, or I haven't done something, but they've always eaten something off plan. Judgment or no judgment, depends where you are in prep, different conversation for a different day, right? But as soon as someone says that, it's like, if you nail this 100% to the gram, you'd be coming in with a spring in your step going, measurements day, Don't forget your measurements, Simon. We've got to measure, right? Are we measuring yet? When are we measuring? And
they're so smirk, aren't they? They're like, clients stuck to the plan. They're so... They've just got this massive grin on their face, and they're like...
Yeah. Hey, just don't forget the measurements. I'm like, you're 10 minutes early to the session, mate. I've got another client. Leave me alone. We'll do your measurements. If they come in and go, oh, can we just do it on Friday? I'm like, no, we can't. And it's not because I want to be a dick. It's because I want to let you know that, like, you can't just pick and choose, because you're going to get this mentality that I can mess up on the weekend. I have time to out diet it off, which is a bad mentality. That's the binge restrict mentality of sort of dieting you want to get people away from. It also, you may have that big meal out and then drop weight and drop body fat the next day. You might
respond really well.
Yeah, and in that's valuable information. That also teaches you not to be scared of things like carbohydrates or bad food, because it's not always bad. And it allows you to have that conversation to make sure that you don't go the other way and go, well, I got away with it. Let's do it bigger next week. And I think that's that. We all have fat days. We all have days where we feel skinny. It's part of prep. And I think the thing about having a coach, no matter how good you are, no matter how mentally tough you are, you have the potential to break in those moments. And I think sometimes when you're a coach, it's worse, because when a Gen Pop person feels flat, feels skinny, they might self-sabotage, or they might not know the difference and they don't do anything. Whereas if I have a skinny day, I'll go, ooh, maybe I need a refeed today. It's my own prep. I definitely think 300 grams of carbs is what's needed. I'm like, no, Simon, shut the fuck up. You don't. Just carry on. And I think that's having that outside perspective for someone that's not there is so valuable.
Yeah. I think it's just like it's too easy to rationalize the idea of having a cheat meal. Like, I actually didn't. I had Christmas dinner off. That's it in the last 6 months.
Good effort.
Oh no, that's not true. Actually, I had a burger about a couple of months ago. But it's just plain to see that, like, most of the stuff that people talk about is nonsense, right? Like, the deficit always works. Yeah, okay, it might be a little bit grim. I had a guy called Marcello doing a couple of guys. He prepped the same time shooting with me, and he was just hardcore, right? Just like a linear 1,600 calories for the last 3 months. Did it work? Obviously it worked, man. Because but is it the smartest way to get there? That
you telling me you didn't hit starvation mode? I've heard that thing.
No, fully enough. Because no one starved, no one died.
Yeah,
they just all looked really good.
I wonder how many followers I'll lose for this, because all those Jews in concentration camps got really morbidly obese. If they just did more cardio, they would have been fucking fine. But the thing is, though, I'm mean and I'm harsh about this starvation mode thing, because I would love that to die a death, because I want people to understand that it's okay to be struggling. It's okay to make a mistake. We all do it. We all make mistakes on our diet. And one of the things that people don't like to admit they're struggling, and it's human nature to admit you're struggling. We all struggle, and people need to be more, or should be more, happy to be vulnerable. And again, the advantage of having a coach is being able to, like, have that conversation, like, right, I get it, and this is what we can do. Or that little bit of support is really valuable. And I think the starvation mode thing is often a thing that people, like the sustainability thing, use to justify things that they know they shouldn't do, and it often stops them getting to the thing they ultimately want. And not everyone should want to be shredded, but we're talking about shoot prep here, right? But I think that's really, really important, that, like, anyone watching this who wants to embark on a shoot prep or wants to embark on a coach, be in a position where you really get a coach, whether it's us two or anyone else that you find on the internet. Find someone you really think you can get on with and have that conversation with when you're struggling, when you cheat. There's not guilt. I don't know about yourself, but I like beer, pizza and donuts as much as anyone listening to this. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. And we will crack. I did my last photo shoot prep, and I had one night where I was at a house party. I bring my prep food, and I probably was under on a deficit because I forgot my prep food and just drank Coors Light for the rest of the evening.
I could not do that. I couldn't go out. I couldn't go out to a party.
No, I think the more I've done these preps, the more I'm like, I don't want to become a social recluse. I want to learn how to adapt. Maybe my first, I'm a bit more cautious, but like, I want to make I've chosen to do prep, and I don't want to take that out on my fiance. I don't want to be like, I've been in one of my first preps with her where I went to a funeral with Tupperware. Like, that's not really the proudest moment, you know? And I think, okay, I did that once to see how far I can go, but if I've chosen prep, it's on me to work our social calendar around that. And if the prep is a priority to me, I will find a way to sort
I had a birthday where I ate chicken, rice, and green beans 5 times on my birthday. And this is going to make me sound terrible, but I treated myself to an extra couple of meals of HGH for as a birthday treat. And that's when I look back and I'm like, I've lost my way. I've lost my way. That's deadly serious. Like, for people that don't know, it's a peptide. It's nothing crazy, but it's that mentality that you can get yourself into is. I look great. It was good, but it can be dangerous, and there's a lot of it is unnecessary. And that's the beautiful thing about continually doing preps, that you're going to learn. Like when my girlfriend preps now, she's won like pretty much every bikini category that there is in the UK, and she's pretty chilled, man. Like she never fluctuates. She just like, she's not. I shouldn't say this either, because she's not 100% rigid to a diet, but she's done so many. She can make small adjustments that she knows that she can get away with, and she does. I almost think it's in her favour that she doesn't have this horrible amount of pressure on herself. She just like trains hard, eats super well, and maybe it's genetic because she does fucking fire all the time, which is brilliant for me.
I think that's important. That's important to know as well, though, right? Some people are just going to have an easier time dieting than others, and it's sometimes people just find it easier, and like, it's again like the starvation mode thing. It's like, don't use that as an excuse. Like, understand where you're not here to compare. I'm not here to compare my physique to. I'm not here to compare my chest development to your girlfriend, because I'm not going to win that battle, am I? Right? Like,
she's got pretty big knockers.
Yeah. Yes, that's my fiance, so we're all good. But probably watching this will hate me now. But we're not here to compare to other people. We're here to compare against ourselves, and if we have to go grind harder, that's what we need to do. And I think understanding the first prep you're more likely going to be able to do is probably going to be one of your hardest, because you've not had a period of time of really putting on some tissue, building up your calories. And the aim is, with every prep, it should be a little bit easier because you're starting from a little bit more food, but it doesn't ever make it easy.
Are you a sleeper? Are you a sleeper or a non-sleeper?
When I'm dieting?
Yeah.
It's been a while now to actually remember. I generally don't think I have any. I don't have any issues with sleep as long as I prioritize it. Like, ever. Like, my problem is if my brain goes, I've got a bit ADHD, so if I can get hyper focused at 11 o'clock at night and I'm awake till 2, and that will mess me up, and I'll look considerably worse. So when I'm on shoot prep, I have to be really, really strict myself to, like, no, laptop shuts. I get into bed. So I don't think it's like, I find dieting much easier than bulking once I'm into it. Like, I find that the hard part for me is getting into it, and then I'm so into the process and so zoned in on day to day, and then I find it harder on the last week, because I don't think I've got the shoot day in the back of my mind, but I'm thinking, what am I doing today to be better than yesterday? What am I doing tomorrow to be better than today? And I just think like that. I don't think about it. It's just day by day, tick boxes, done. Don't think about it, just done. And then when I get to that last week, it's like, it changes where, I can have a cookie on Sunday. Oh man, I could have a good stuff burger place on Sunday. And then all of a sudden I get super food focused. And then I'll struggle. Yeah.
The last week of school, right? No one can focus on anything.
Exactly. And I'll
just like carving your name into the desk or something.
Yeah.
Like that, doing your work. Like gluing something to the table.
Exactly. So let's tell us so many stuff we can go on to about this. I was going to go into like cardio and hit cardio and how I don't like hit. Do you actually? I'll quickly go into this before we go into dumb shit we've done when in diet mode, because that's a great way to end it with a bit of fun. But what do you do in terms of cardio and conditioning? Is there anything you particularly do in terms of rules with cardio when it comes to prep?
Slowly build it. Just slowly build it. I think that they're because you know as well as me that there can be negative consequences to excessive amounts of cardio in terms of retaining tissue, in terms of putting your CNS in a bad position, or just driving down certain minerals that are going to really play a key role in keeping your physique in place. So,
or even make you hungrier.
Yeah, and a lot of people, especially at like sort of quite high intensity, can just make it really hard to control your diet. So for some people, and it's time as well. Some people don't have an hour to do cardio a day. Like, you know, the last one I was doing 2 hours a day, but I had time. I get up early. I have a Concept 2 bike in my living room, and I have time. I sit on my bike, and my PA comes in, and she talks at me, and I talk at her, and she writes down notes. And it's really time effective, but I think if you're really serious about prep, metabolic testing for your cardiovascular output is a really strong idea. You don't want to be in a position where you're kicking over into gluconeogenesis. How do you say it?
Gluconeogenesis.
Gluconeogenesis.
Look at me, science boy.
Yeah, you don't want to be kicking over into that like part of your system, right, where we're primarily burning through amino acids and proteins. That's bad, right? That's bad.
Yeah.
So everyone's got a unique threshold of when they're going to be primed for more burning of fat. And I actually think that I really enjoy the step count sort of strategy with that. And I think it's actually probably a much safer, much smarter strategy when coming into the more fun into the last stages of prep. Is like, all right, let's just get you out walking a lot, in some fresh air, and just get moving a little bit more with less impact to already compromised central nervous system.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you. I mean, I think everyone knows, by the way, you have your bike. Anyone that follows you knows you have your bike in the morning with the Instagram stories, and you're always playing with your hair. And I'm just like, geez, you make me jealous. I don't have my hair grows up. But I'm with you on the cardio front. I think for the most part, I think steady state cardio gets a bad rap in terms of since May rest in peace, but since Poliquin passed away, the anti cardio muscle loss thing is mostly died a death, which is good. But I think it depends on where someone's at. If someone comes to me and the health markers are bad, if they have the time, I'll give a heavy aerobic block to start, get them in a good place. Maybe move into more HIIT, but I'm not a fan of HIIT. Certainly towards later stages of prep, HIIT goes out.
No.
Like HIIT on a low carb diet is the dumbest thing I ever see, because you need glucose to fuel HIIT, and then you haven't got any. And when you get to the end of a diet, you're already massively stressed. And we talked about this in the live I did on yours with that massive stress cup, and if it's overflowing already, don't pour another liter on top. And that's what I find that people with HIIT is. I think as it comes down, I will start going more into steady state, going into the end stage of prep, and into that going back to last week, I will taper cardio entirely off. Like I'll probably lower the duration, and on the last couple of days, like nothing. Stick your feet up.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I think I have stuck. I'm not always do, but I have stuck a little bit of HIIT training in towards maximal food load, right? Just to pull out those free fatty acids a little bit easier. Just pull them back into circulation with the HIIT training, and I find that works well. And obviously, like improvements in mitochondrial function can lead to better work capacity when that HIIT then comes out. But I don't want. It's not a permanent presence in any part of any transformation ever. And anyone who follows me at all will know we did that massive live with Justin the other day about the drop off point with HIIT training and the negative equity within using that as in any sort of duration. It's not a viable long-term fat loss solution. It is an accessory. It should always be an accessory for fat loss. used sparingly, like fucking hundreds of thousands on a cake, you know, it's a point of contention for me. And if I could slap the face of the fitness industry in one foul swoop, it would be like stop fucking putting everyone jumping up and down, fucking themselves up.
Well, that's the thing as well. It's like it's a lot of stress for not much gain, and a lot of these times where they make people more hungry. So like if the appetite ramps up in a diet, and the diet's going to do most of the work, the cardio gets dropped. You know, like that's it. I want the diet to do its job. You know, I think, and interesting, like not a cardio thing, but you were talking about like playing around with bringing fats in the cells in the high carb days at the end of prep, adding a little bit of hitting. It just reminded me of something I've played around with recently. I realised a lot of the mistakes I made in early peak weeks was actually since I did the muscle nerds course. We talked about tracking metrics and talking about blood pressure, resting heart rate. And at the time, I didn't have HRV, but I probably will on my next one. What I realised is that I did a lot of HIIT, a lot of conditioning work on my first ever prep. And I reckon, I didn't track it, but I reckon my blood pressure was probably super low. My resting heart rate was probably super low. And because I was so relaxed, I couldn't carb up. I was like 300 grams of carbs, drop weight. 500 grams of carbs, drop weight. 900 grams of carbs, drop weight. And my coach at the time went, Simon, just go and have a kebab, all the sauce. And I had to shitload to kind of get my stuff up. And what I've realised now is like, if I was training someone in for a powerlifting meet sort of thing, where I want them to be a little bit aggressive, and I don't need sort of like the carb and the fill up effect. I probably want the matrix to be slightly high, obviously not unhealthily high, but enough to kind of go. If I was training someone for a marathon, I want them to be able to consume considerable amounts of carbs and fuel and it not touch the sides, so they can just be, and I want them to be super chilled. With a bodybuilding show, you're sort of in between. You want them to be relaxed enough that they can actually, they're metabolically flexible enough to handle the food that you're putting in, to be able to deliver it where it needs to be. But you don't want to be so relaxed that it's such an effort to pump up that you just can't physically do it and you're stressing because of that in the first place.
Metabolic flexibility isn't something that most people really understand, right? And it's like, you know, your metrics, and this is where and this is straight off the point, and this is where like trends of fasting can really do a lot of harm if you haven't got the metabolic flexibility to shift from junk food to no food. Then you can really fuck yourselves up. What's the dumbest thing let's finish with it. The dumbest thing is the last one for sure. The dumbest thing was the last one. I can't even go into it because in case my coach watches, because it was under him and it wasn't what he told me to do.
We just spoke about how valuable it is to be able to be
I know. But like then I was like, I'm fucking laser focused. That's why the second one went so well. I was just like, no more thinking, Laurence. No more thinking. Just listen and do. Listen and do. Yeah. And that's a really good way to work with a coach, right? Don't try and think too much about what they're asking you. Just get on with it. Especially if you've got like us, like 10 odd years in the industry and more. It's a pretty easy task. It's not something that you're gonna really struggle to get right, despite what people think that the transformation is hard. It's not. You just haven't got the right coach.
My dumbest one, as you brought it up to the start. I'll tell you my dumbest one. Whilst you're thinking of one yourself, and I'll tell you my dumbest one. I'll tell you a couple of the silliest things I did in my last prep when I got really like. One thing people don't tell you about prep is that your body will just down-regulate any energy, anything it doesn't need, just to get you through the prep. And diet brain for me is real. You know, if I do have actually a bit of ADHD, I'm bad at forgetting things anyway. And then I get into diet brain and I'm all over the place. In my last prep, I left my iPad on a train at Euston, and thankfully someone handed it in. I lost my passport on the day I was supposed to fly to Marbella to help with a training camp, and thankfully someone found it and messaged me on Facebook, and I picked it up just before I had to get the flight. And the most silly one is I was sitting there on autopilot and I put the water where the beans should go in our really expensive coffee machine at work, and thankfully it was all right. But like I've lost my glasses on my head, I've lost my keys, they've been in the fridge, and like mental.
I've got a bad one as well. One of the preps that I did in 5 weeks was actually probably one of the best outcomes in a short space of time. I went in so hard, and my stress was so high. Well, the first intense prep, I ended up giving myself what do they call it when your intestines erupt? What's it called now? Septicemia. I give myself septicemia, and then the one that this is how hard it went. And then the second time round, the 5 week one that I was just talking about, I was frequently pissing myself all the time. Like I waterloaded, and I would be training a client, and I fucking shouldn't say this on the internet, but I'd be training a client, and like I look down and like, you pissed yourself. I'm like, and I was living in West London at the time with my girlfriend, and my gym's obviously east, and I'd have to drive there and back, and I'd have to take a cup with me in the car because like my water load was really aggressive. I'd have to piss in a cup, and sometimes I just didn't even notice. And that was like, no one tells you about all this shit. I mean, that was a particularly aggressive
yeah,
prep.
I've never had that. You know, like my story now is going to seem really tame in comparison to that one.
Ooh, one sec, the door's just gone. I think it's my... Sorry, keep talking.
Yeah, so I'll go through my one. So on my first ever prep, the one where I did it myself, and I was getting close to the shoot day, and I was like, right, I'm going to discuss. Can you hear me all right, Laurence?
I can hear you. Yeah, someone was at the door.
I thought I need to do a peak week, because your first one, you've got to do a peak week, right? And I'm 68, 69 kilos soaking wet. Like I was skinny as anything. And I do this peak week. I read on a forum by Mark Gilbert, a really, really smart guy. And this wasn't a bad peak week, but this is a peak week written for bodybuilders who are enhanced. I didn't know that. I just thought, I'll do that because he's smart. It's not written for me. So it considered this water load and depletion went up to 10 litres, and I immediately cut it to nothing for basically almost 3 days.
Oh, fuck.
So not only was it a horrendously horrible experience, I couldn't carb up because I couldn't eat
obviously not
food. I'm now trying to wolf down grapes to get some hydration to get my carbs in. And my photo shoot, although it was, I looked lean, I looked more like a Calvin Klein model who'd been addicted to heroin than I did a fitness model. And I went afterwards, and because my first shoot, and like most people on the first shoot, they go nuts on food and drink. So I went out with my beers. That's how drunk I was. I went out with the boys, had one beer. And anyone that knows me, and this isn't a brag, but I can handle my alcohol very, very well. There's a point where I get drunk quickly, and then I don't get any worse. I just start contributing to the next day's hangover. So that's not a brag because it's horrible. I'd rather just get drunk enough to have to go home. So for me to take one drink and literally be unable to stand was strange. It was a really weird experience. And that's because I hadn't done water for like three days pretty much. Running into the thing.
And we forget it's like some of these protocols are like dangerously unhealthy. Dangerously unhealthy, and you do, despite what you think at the time, you do need to live to see another day, or at least another prep.
And I'll never put a client through that. I'll never put a client through that because it's not sensible. But I do think some of the things I've learned more from my mistakes than I've learned from the things that have gone well. And I think sometimes you go through these, and obviously, hopefully the mistakes aren't as dumb as not drinking water for 3 days or pissing yourself on a regular basis. But you'll learn your own mistakes, right?
Yeah. I can live without pissing myself. That's one of the things that I'll leave behind for good.
Sweet. So where obviously Instagram, but for anyone who've watched this on record and watched this through my profile, where can people find you?
I'm at Salus London, SALUS London. LON.
And
deal.
Cool. Yeah, and,
no one
and
needs
give us
to
a
know.
little bit about what you offer, what you do in terms of your gym, your online stuff.
So we're quite unique in the sense that we only do body transformations, and this was a road that I wanted to go down for a long time, and obviously only like having enough money to facilitate choosing the clients can really make that happen. And so it took a few years for that to manifest in its truest form, but now we only do body transformations, and we're at the point now, if that's not you, then there's probably some place better for you to go. And like it's just because it's the camaraderie, right? It's the environment we're trying to breed. Is that we're trying to have that essence of where UP was a few years ago, where it's like, okay, everyone's here to work, and I want to look across the room and I want to see that person, and I want them to drive me forward, and I want the coaches to become enthusiastic about their clients and be that like, yeah, like I need that. I don't need the like sort of like that training style. I really love the intensity of like, I only want to see you for a short period of time each week, but I really want like ferocity. Yeah, I want your best each time. And I really believe that's a key element to getting the transformation, is to leave everything at the door and really put the work in when you're with me, and then everything outside of that is learning how to be as chilled as fuck.
So with obviously the gym's opening up now, where is your gym? Where can people find Salus?
We're in De Beauvoir in East London. We've got a cool little space that's co-inhabited by Chris Bailey, who's the UK's #1 fitness photographer, which is really handy, but also bad as well, because it doesn't create much urgency when I think about doing a photo shoot now, because I'm like, I can gonna just ask any time. But so that's kind of a double-edged sword, but it's a beautiful space. All people at all levels are welcome, as long as you're willing to fucking work your ass off, do what the fuck you're told, and you've got a big fucking hungry big why, right? I want to know why the fuck you want to be there. I don't want, want to tone up and lose a few pounds. I want to know everything. You'll understand the value of that as you get, you personally, I know the value of working with people like that. It makes life epic. It makes going to work epic all the time.
It makes the client's life epic as well, right? When
it's
they
fucking
know
high-fiving and fucking fist-bumping all session, just like, and I know that sounds cheesy, but that's my choice to breed that environment. When I walk into like some, like, fitness centers or, big gyms, and you just, there's that lacks that atmosphere of sometimes, and like I like it in the muscle like big meathead gyms, because everyone's got that intention. It only takes sometimes a little look up and they're like that. It's just that. And it's this person who's like a different culture, he's from a different part of London, you never get on as friends, but you've got this connection, this like, I'm here to work, you're here to work, we're fucking working hard. And that's something that I really wanted to bring into the mainstream without the scary meathead sort of atmosphere. But even though I love the meathead sort of atmosphere.
Yeah, we all do. Awesome. So everyone watching this, or when you watch this on the replay, go and follow Laurence. Really, really smart guy, really, really good content on there.
Thank you, dude.
And then for anyone that follows this, for me, again, remember I think I'm on 2 days for my announcement. It's Saturday morning. Big announcement of what's coming next for me.
Congratulations on the new brand as well. I think it's epic. I think it's beautiful.
Thank you very much. It'll all become much more clear for everybody else, because you know it more than a lot of other people do. On Saturday, everyone's had a few teasers with the little T-shirts I've been wearing, but everyone will know a little bit more what it's about. Sweet, man. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed chatting.
I hope someone actually found that useful. There wasn't much in there.
we got a comment saying this is a great chat, so I'll take it.
Okay, one spot.
Yeah, and we'll definitely have to do this again, maybe going into that mindset stuff and finding the why at some point too. Mate, but absolute pleasure, and I'll have a good rest of your day.
All right, look after yourself, brother. See you in a bit.
Mate.